Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Ooh, um, thank you very much for being here. We're going to talk about something that sparked my interest. Of course, on this channel, it's always about sparking interest. And I thought we would talk about world building and info dumping. The thumbnail, if you see this thumbnail, I talked about the canons. Um, Canon, like as in information background, histories, and cannons, like weapons, riding the razor's edge of not enough information or too much. And I called it blunt weapons, basically hitting people over the head with all of your world building. Here on this channel, we accept the fact that many of us suffer from world builder's disease. And I'd like to address some of those issues and maybe even show you some simple techniques that I kind of fall for like that I use to rein in my own desire to want to over canon a canon with a canon. So I thought we would talk about that today and also discuss the propensity for the OSR to go for like random tables, not necessarily random encounters, but why the desire for random tables, whereas in um, much more of a modern day parlance in fantasy D20, it's like no, it has to be pre-planned and out, and why there is a section of our community that's really into that, and what does it represent? And I'm gonna, spoiler alert, um, it isn't what you think it is. Let's just put it that way. It's not as random as you may think. And this actually applies to all randomizations and being surprised. And also, we're going to talk about how the hell do you info dump in the first place? It could be a little bit daunting. Okay, so uh, world builder's disease. Okay, we suffer from it. I should make a T-shirt that says something about that. But um, sometimes we want to fill in the nooks and crannies of a world, and we can get a little too involved in it because our own creative impulses want to fill the cup. I'm not sure where I learned this from, but it's been described as this: take a cup or a bucket and you fill it with very large stones. And when you fill it with very large stones, the larger the stones, the big moving bits and pieces of your world. I have a science fiction world that takes place within our own solar system. So my big chunks are our planets: Mercury, Venus, Terra, Luna, Mars, Jupiter. Those are my big giant chunks. And then without overflowing the bucket, you can put smaller stones in there to fill some of the gaps. And those are things like some of the political issues. Those may be military issues. They may be crimes. They may be hey, good morning. It might be the aftermath of cataclysmic events. It may be a cycle of things happening. Visitors from afar. Changes in changes in structures, whether it's economic or political or things like that. Hey, just Angel, good morning, good morning. To everyone, well, good morning if you're on this side of the world. And um, this bucket doesn't have to overflow and be a problem if we begin using smaller and smaller fragments until we aren't just down to pebbles. We're pouring sand into the bucket. The danger of it is at a certain point, even we won't be able to lift the bucket up. And if someone were to try to reach down to grab a big boulder or play with a small pebble or get a small rock or get the sand out, in other words, your players, there may be no space for them. And our world building disease uh, um, side effects, sometimes we can get a little bit upset. Now, of course, in one of the things about why I mentioned canon is that um, we can also be ravenous for information. Pick the setting of any game. I've got a Star Wars T-shirt on. You have Warhammer 40K. You have the world of Star Trek. You have Lord of the Rings. There are so many intellectual properties of Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk. There are so many settings in places that have grown over time. Even the new kid on the block back in the '90s, World of Darkness suffered from this, and that is part of our geeky culture. Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely talking about overdeveloping. So one of part of our geeky culture is that we're ravenous for information, and we will buy comic books, novels, T-shirts. We will embrace anything and everything that relates to our fandom, and far more often than a little bit, we want answers, right? We want to know in Star Wars all the planets. We want to know all the Jedi. We want to know all the Sith Lords. We want to know, are there people who aren't part of each one? Oh, great, they created something else. There's gray Jedi. And then we want to know about all the lightsabers. Someone's got a collection of every single lightsaber shape and things, and what are the colors, and at a certain point our ravenous desire for canon, like the history of Warhammer 40K, or the history of Forgotten Realms or something, that you know we could turn into well actuallys. Someone says something about the twin moons over Tatooine, and someone goes, well, pushes the glasses up. Well, actually, it's three, and they're sons, and at a certain point, you go down this like 20 to 45-minute rabbit hole of someone giving you a dissertation of all the information they know about Lord of the Rings. And at a certain point, I hated great job, yeah. And at a certain point, the canon becomes over canonized. And I know that's a strange way to describe something as over canonized, but uh, it is the over canoning is like a person who not only wants to puff their chest out and prove how much they know about a thing, but they also, like the bucket filling it with information, don't allow for alternate like alternate realities, exceptional rules, the propensity that things aren't 100% the way you think they are. As a matter of fact, I've always made when I argue with people who are like Star Wars aficionados, I always bring back, well, you do realize it says a long time ago in a place far, far away, the information you think you know might not be accurate. And there are whole books written that are from an unreliable narrator's point of view. I bring up Game of Thrones, where House of the Dragon, well, technically the book is Fire and Shadow or something like that. And anyways, it's what's House of the Dragon is based off. And literally the book is written as a historical event of unreliable narrators of events that happened so far in the past that there isn't anyone alive now that can challenge. And George R.R. Martin even wrote conflicting stories in it, and there are still people who are just like, I'm watching House of the Dragon and this doesn't make sense. In the book it says, like, yeah, but the book is literally written to be not accurate. So yeah, we're going to talk about that. Adeline says, had major disagreements as to whether fading suns should have a canon answer to why the suns were fading. I argued against. Exactly. Sometimes this can hurt us in a way that sometimes we take too personally, but sometimes you just shouldn't explain a thing. Sometimes a little bit, maybe not letting someone know the true answer as to the I don't know, the Mad Max Road Warrior, Fury Road background. How did the world end? Maybe we don't even need to know that. Maybe that's unimportant. Yeah. No, no, Demi, not A Song of Ice and Fire. The prequel book, that House of the Dragon, the television show, is based off of. I want to say it's Fire and Shadow, but I'm pulling out my ass. Yeah, yeah. Death Angel says my biggest complaints about the track Watsi has been on is staying too focused on the sword codes. Yep, I really missed the regional source books that just gave an overview of a region, and it's a fine line, right? It's this razor's edge, like I put in the thumbnail. There's a razor's edge. Like, how much information do you reveal? Like, do you just? I'm gonna make a swamp with lizard folk. Okay, just fantasy. Do you just mention in like 3 lines that there are competing tribes of lizard folk that live in the swamps and they dominate the region there, although they are very rarely seen by the common folk, and just end it right there? Or do you start naming like lizard folk chieftains and the animals they ride on and the foods they eat? And um, it's like, do you start putting it's the concept of if you stat it, they can kill it. Yeah, Debbie, fire and blood. It's fire and blood. I was like, fire and shadow. There's always those 3 things together: fire, shadow, blood. Maybe throw some steel or iron in there. Those are like the big 4, which I always thought would make a pretty easy role playing game to make. But yeah, yeah. You don't like Ahsoka? Yeah. See, and it's like, sometimes explaining a thing takes away from the mystery of the thing. It takes away from our ability for me to say, "Oh, I think it's this one thing," and someone else that where I don't assign my identity to the lore. And I think sometimes in our geekdom, and maybe I'm getting a little bit too deep into this, but sometimes in our geekdom, we assign, we identify our true selves by identifying it with our geekdom. And when someone else doesn't like it, or we're gatekeepers and we feel like you're not a true fan, right? Because there's even that, right? You're not really a fan of Star Wars if you haven't watched the Ahsoka show and loved it. Like, you're not a real fan if you, and fill in the blank of whatever IP it is. Sometimes it could be, uh, we can hurt someone else's feelings, um, not even by disliking something, but just not even being interested in the thing. I know I have we're all geeks, and many of us have gaps in our geekdom, and mine are video games, Warhammer 40K, Doctor Who. Like, those are my big 3 that I have. I've got a huge gap. I don't know. I've seen many video games played. I just was grew up, not much money. My friends, not much money. We were more interested in running the streets. I'm a person of a certain age where playing outside was a real thing. Yes, we didn't die from the sun. We preferred having, I don't want to say anything, real social interactions. We did. You guys are funny. Okay, so but we need some answers. So I would like to give my 2 cents on answering having some way to deal with the things that's going on. Now, of course, always communication, communication, communication. That damn near 87% of all the answers when people have questions about role-playing games is communication. Session 0. Of course, session 0 doesn't even have to happen before session 1. It can just be an aside with everyone to say we're all on the same page. And that is, I'm not talking about safety tools. I'm not talking about resetting the campaign. I'm just talking about, hey guys, listen, remember when we started this Star Wars campaign and we said that the Death Star wasn't destroyed by Luke Skywalker? Could we listen? Could we stop bringing that up? And I was going to do another video about, like, there's plenty of videos about what game master responsibilities there are, but I feel like there's a laundry list of player responsibilities and that are never really focused, as if the players really don't do anything wrong. And one of those is play the fucking game that's in front of you. Play that game. Don't keep bringing up this other game you played in. Don't keep talking about, well, my character sucks because eventually, when the game master finally gifts me with enough experience for me to do a thing that I really want to do. No, play the game in front of you. If you decided and agreed in your session 0 to play in an alternate universe of Star Wars, stop bringing up the canon, because now the canon is thrown away. And I think sometimes simply stopping someone who's like, listen, I want to, I love the lore of Lord of the Rings, but um, I want Sauron to still be alive and dominate the region. And you player characters, the ring was never destroyed. The ring was returned to Sauron, and it's covered in evil. And people who are like the using the canon of the canon are just like, yeah, but this is where the hobbits were, and this is where no. In this world, it's not that way. And if you agree to it, just accept it. Uh, Death Angel says it is different shades or degrees of information. Yep, a general overview, like uh, FRCS. God, my brain. Okay. Anyway, more specific info like the regional books that included more details with some specific landmarks and our NPCs and information overload from an over concentration on a narrow aspect or region. Oh yes, the Forgotten Realm. Thank you. God, my brain. Yes, Forgotten Realms, Sword Coast, I guess referring to. And listen, I am, as much as I'm pointing the finger and going, you fold arms, bad, bad, slap in the back of the hand, right? Um, I'm in that same, yeah, Forgotten Realms campaign setting. Okay, yes, they're fans of Keith Baker, and this. So many people have included so much stuff about the Forgotten Realms and these other like um, the information sometimes falls less in role playing and further into novelization. And I think our desire for really embracing sometimes lore makes us think less about the role playing aspect and more about the novelization. It's like being a Star Wars fan and buying one of those like picture books that tells you all the background information, not how the movies are made, but like the NPCs and where they came from. Like in the original A New Hope, you know, they've named and detailed damn near everybody in the cantina. Why? I don't know. There's no reason to have to do that, but there are people who are like, I want to be rewarded for my geekdom and my interest, so I want to buy a book that details all of that stuff. And that's more novelization, right? Yeah, yeah. Shinobi says I like Ben Milton's player responsibilities videos. Yeah, Questing Beast. I'm a fan, and one of some of these responsibilities. Sometimes we could be a little too nice. Of course, mine is play the game in front of you. Right? Don't compare and contrast what the game master is doing versus other things. Play your character. Play that game. Play the thing that's in front of you. But I think also. Um, there's a time and place for everything. This channel, before a game, after a game, on your social medias, on your Discord server, that's the time you talk about like, oh, I love this thing in Lord of the Rings, or I read the Silmarillion, or I picked up this other background book about this other corner of the Star Trek universe or something. That's cool. Then when you play the game, shut that shit off, right? It's time. It's just like, put your head into the game, play your character, involve yourself in the world, and that kind of stuff. Shadow says, I'm an Ed Greenwood Patreon, but because I like the info for me as a DM, not for the players to know, unless, right. Now, okay, so let's deal with I'm going to talk about the big and small of a thing. So one issue, the problem is when players know as much or worse, more about the world than a DM. And this is why sometimes games with a very heavy background, living world, Warhammer 40K, Greyhawk, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. I'm trying to think of some other IP, and I can't think of heavy ones off the top of my head. Even all the Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, Fire and Blood books, the spring, summer, winter novelizations of Dragonlance and all this kind of stuff. The reason why many people don't want to be game masters, storytellers, narrators, dungeon masters, is because of that fact. Like me, even as much of a fan of Call of Cthulhu, I love. There are some people who have read all the Cthulhian novels, um, all of the Lovecraft and all the other writers that have written stuff like that. Yeah, too much canon is too much, right? And sometimes you just, you know, we want to be nice to the people we play with, but the back of my mind is like, shut the fuck up, right? I get it. You know everything. This isn't that world. That information, like I mentioned before, even the people who wrote much of this stuff, sometimes it's that information is given by unreliable narrators. And like the books in Song of Ice and Fire, like the books of Fire and Blood, literally George R. R. Martin put characters in there with their voice from their opinion, and we know we were explicitly and implicitly told that this person that you're reading and listening to is not really that reliable. They have an agenda. And yeah, and Anon says, yeah, Lovecraft was nothing but unreliable narrators, right? Also, it leaves, when people overcanon something, it leaves zero space for us to participate in it. When someone says all the Jedi were killed in Order 66, it's like, were all of them really killed? Are you sure? Like, are you sure this is 100% accurate, or you're just saying this to just because you need to get a lot of information out shortly and tell all the people who think they're Jedi, listen, they were all killed in Order 66, run for it, right? And when we find out there's other Jedi, people are just like, well, that doesn't make sense. They were all killed. Well, maybe that was inaccurate. Maybe that's a lie. Maybe someone thought like today, maybe as players, maybe we think something is true and it's not. Drew says, especially with the Cthulhu mythos, it's just silly to insist on so canon. Yeah, I mean, it's all about the unfathomable. Exactly. Really, can you really trust the opinion of a person who was um, who saw an eldritch horror, experienced an arcane insanity, stopped drooling after 6 months, and then started drawing pictures in blood on the walls, and you're like, yep, they've got all the answers. I believe them. Really? Really? They clawed their eyes out. Maybe that person, at night, strange oozes and a weird tentacle came out of their like sphincter. Is this the person you want to rely all your information on? No, right? So, sorry about the eldritch descriptions there, but yeah. Deadman says Warhammer 40K has a year system based on the source's reliability. Events on Terra are R10, events occurring in the warp are R1. And if I'm not mistaken, Deadman, because I know um, I know, or I believe it was Warhammer 40K, and there were other settings where every year there would be a convention, and the events that happened in the con had a reflection on the setting. I believe it was Legend of the Five Rings as well did something like that, where the White Wolf game system did the exact same thing, where each game book that came out gave us more information about the lore, and it also traveled through time. So one book 3 years ago may have had a Council of Seven, and then today, 3 years later, in a book, it talks about the assassination of 4 members of the Council of Seven, and there's a suspicion that one of them was systematically assassinating the other 4 members and trying to take over, right? And sometimes you even get arguments between people that have canon, because different individuals read and absorb information at different periods of time, and the creators themselves created a timeline that not everyone is privy to, and you can't even be upset at that, right? There are people who today have purchased the physical book, Dungeons and Dragons Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, Dungeon Master's Guide, back in 2014, 2015, and those are the only books they've owned. They don't read errata. They haven't updated their collection. They haven't purchased any of those world books or anything. That's what they have. And He's so funny. Not. Can I pronounce that? Flog squishkia, the uneditable. Oh, did I pronounce it right? I challenge myself. Um, yeah. Uh, Death Angel says, well, Ed Greenwood said in the Elminster book that, and R.A. Salvatore established that Dritz was a, so you're wrong. Yeah, right. It's like, wait a minute. And some of this stuff is, let's be honest, it's corporate, it's legal. Can Ed Greenwood edit something that Wizards of the Coast incorporated by hiring another writer, R.A. Salvatore, to put something in a book that did a thing? It's like, yeah, relax. I mean, Star Wars with my shirt on, right? Why was there a purple lightsaber with Samuel L. Jackson had a purple lightsaber? It was because he just said, great, I like Samuel Jackson. He has to be in a movie. And I came up with a random color so that he could be in the movie, right? I don't think there was much more thought about that. Now, later on, different people came up with different reasons and things. But at the time, even us creators, sometimes we don't even know. If you ask some of these creators, and there's some people who are so deep into the canon that George R.R. Martin even mentioned this, if I'm, that he had fans of his books that were so deep that they were pointing out his own mistakes about the timeline and the ages of certain characters and that they wouldn't line up. And George R. R. Martin was like, I don't like, he's like, yeah, I get it, but I didn't care, but fine. I'm glad that you're interested in that thing, but that's not the story I'm trying to tell. And stuff. Yeah. Yeah, Sam demanded purple or else. Right. And it's like, well, that the answer to that wasn't the canon of Star Wars. The answer to that was like, well, I like you, Sam, sure. It was like a conversation between people who are in the same industry. That I'm sure there was no like, I need to go back in my 1,200-page philosophy on Star Wars. No. It was like, well, I've got the money and I've got the know-how and no one's going to tell me no. So sure, Sam, you can be in a movie. Yeah. L5R did that with the card tournaments. That's it. Thank you, Drew. I participated in some tournaments, but I never could pull a victory in that game. And by the way, I love Legend of Five Rings. I love the background. I love the push and pull with the different clans, all named after different kinds of real world and mythological animals, crane and crab and dragon and lion and stuff like that. But could I tell you what happened in what age and what? No. And is it really that important? Not really. Yeah, I think it was because Jackson liked purple and Lucas came up with canon to match it. Exactly. And look, here's the thing. What if he never answered that question? Does it really matter? We could speculate, but did it really need an answer? No, not really. Yeah. Anon says fans are a great source of free editing, and with enough of them, they'll not only write the story for you, but be happy over being right. Exactly. I know. But I've seen this argument made with, and we're going to get into some techniques. I promised we would do this. But have you guys ever seen uh, movie pundits or television pundits say something like, well, they should have listened to the fans? And my argument about listening to the fans is, first of all, it doesn't belong to us. So it doesn't matter what Keith Baker, Ed Greenwood, Monty Cook. It doesn't matter what George Lucas or D&D, Dan, the Benioffs. It doesn't matter what these creators or writers or what. It doesn't, whether we like what they created or not, it doesn't belong to us. And we feel because we identify our geekdom and the identity of our personalities, our demeanor, our true selves with our geekdom. And when two don't match, we get upset. But it doesn't belong to us, right? There. I saw so many people getting upset about rebooting Superman, and there's ideas about like it's the whole Black Superman mantra, right? Where they're like, well, we were thinking about doing this, and there's so many people upset. You're just like, well, Superman's a white guy. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm going, have you read comic books before? Because I don't think you have. They change shit up all the time. Alternate universes, New writers come in and they do a reboot yet again because they just did a hardback version of the last 12 issues. And so they reboot shit all the time. Uniforms, outfits, powers, backgrounds. It's a constant churn. So when they do that in a movie, just because someone moved your cheese doesn't mean it's wrong. You know. Now let's get into some techniques, right? Because sometimes hitting people over the head with all the great work we did as an individual who does suffer from a world builder's disease. Sometimes we got to shut the F up. Listen, I love world building, but even me, I catch myself going, zip it, www.com, right? But then, okay, well, what's the term? It's better to show than to tell, but how do you show someone something if we're playing role-playing games where all we're doing is telling? Yes, we can use AI art. We can go scrape ArtStation for things in our personal games. We can come up with visuals as much as we can, but most of us aren't very good artists, and a lot of the art doesn't quite match what we're looking for. So how do we do that? So we're going to talk about that. I want to see what you guys have to say first. Shadow says, yeah, I'm not too happy with the current states of Star Wars, Star Trek, Doctor Who. Yeah, I'm man enough to admit it. I'm not. Oh, no. Don't listen. That doesn't mean I think I'm pleased with the way things go. I just don't. I feel it's unhealthy to attach my identity to the way things are going. I just shrug my shoulders and go, okay. I don't like that thing. Okay, whatever. I'm a huge Andor fan. Star Wars, right? Huge Andor fan. Excellent writing. Blah blah. Ahsoka sucks. Could have been excellent. Right? That damn show did a lot of telling and not showing. So okay. How do you know this is the real one? Yeah, how do you know I'm not a different individual, right? Because even my variants would have to shut the hell up. Yeah, Shadow says, that said, an RPG should be more open world feeling. So let's get into some techniques. And here is something that if we can learn from us old grognards, that we can learn. Let's see if we can share this out here. So I'm going to share with you a 5-minute document that I made. And this is why those in maybe can I make this even bigger? There we go. Welcome to Dragon World. I put some bullshit together. There's a reason why the OSR is the way it is. And one of the things that happens in the OSR, you guys, is random tables. And one of the things embraced about people who love old school gaming is that maybe the descriptions, the techniques weren't the best described, but it was like being a small child thrown into the deep end of the pool. You had to learn to swim or drown. That was it. It was like, I've got a thick ass book that has horrible organization, and I've got to read this thing and figure out what I want. And much of that were charts, random information, and things like that. And one of the aspects of the OSR is for the game master, storyteller, narrator, flame tender, dungeon master to be surprised themselves, just like the players are surprised. And that is a deep, horrible, scary pill to swallow. To have a random chart create something in the world, and even you at that very moment don't know what the outcome is going to be. But there's a little fallacy in this. Good random charts aren't as random as you think they are. And I don't mean mathematically. Good random charts that are embraced by the OSR actually have options on them that the game master already accepts all the options in there, no matter what they are. So if I had a chart that talked about the desert, and in the desert, it was blue dragons, giant scorpions, sand snakes, trapdoor spiders, nomads, oases, sandstorms. What are some other things? Collapsing sand dunes, hot weather, cacti, and tumbleweed. I don't know. There's some other stuff that happen in deserts. Uh, all that kind of stuff. There is. It means that I already know that this chart, no matter what shows up on the chart, I'm going to embrace it. I already know what it is. I know what it's about. I know anything on this chart is going to absolutely positively. Yeah. I see you guys. I like the background of Ahsoka. I think it's too. I feel like it's too over canonized. You guys are funny. Um, and the the idea that having something random will surprise us, and having the players be involved in a thing like rolling on a random table to establish something that happens seems scary, but it's not as much as you think. Um, it is, dare I say, and I've mentioned this before, we feel like there's two camps: over prepping and no preparation at all, just seat of the pants. And the true answer is they're both identical. That all underused, non-used prep is the fuel for your improvisation. And improvisation, people that are great at improvisation are always prepped. Now, that preparation is in the back of their heads, but I can guarantee you right now, you guys who think you're not any good at improvisation are, because you have a lot of canon in your head you can draw from. So if you are a X-Men fan and someone decides to make a left turn in your fantasy or sci-fi world and they go someplace you weren't planning on, just pull some random shit out of your head from the X-Men, reflavor it, and you've got it. Which I'm going to bring up reflavoring in a minute. Destiny Angel says, I liked Andor. I won't watch Ahsoka because I'm not on board with the Oprah version of being a Jedi. And you have the Force, and you have the Force, and you have the Force. Oh, shit. Yes. Oh, that is so funny. Yeah. For those who you must be a person of a certain age. Some people don't remember the Oprah when she gave everyone in the audience a car. You get a car, and you get a car, and the horrors that came after that because people had to pay for the taxes and what's the term, capital gains for owning a car that was just given to them. It was pretty funny, but sad but funny after that. Yeah. Anon says, but adding incongruent elements can be used to suggest possibilities. For why is there a Yeti in the middle of the desert? Right, exactly. Although now I get what you're saying, and like the conflict we had the other day, I am a person who loves reskinning, reflavoring a thing. So if I pulled a random chart that I didn't know what was on it and I rolled Yetis in the desert, my default is to flavor them within the region that they are. So my Yetis, my lizard folk, my winter wolves, my frost giants in the desert might or might not be cold related. I might make them, my winter wolves might breathe out sand or heat waves. My Yeti might have a chitinous shell on them, and they hide down deep in the sands, and their bodies shake rapidly to get the sand off of them, and they go after people. My frost giants might be very emblematic of the desert, and people worship them because they're able to produce cold from their bodies, even though they are, you know, wrapped in the trappings of those who survive in the desert or something. Yeah, Death Angel's Shadows is the problem with over prep is you leave insufficient room to maneuver. Yeah, Sand Yetis, hell yeah. It says 51 guilty as charged. Dude, I'm up there too. I'll be, she was 20. I'll be 54. I'm 53. I'll be 54 at the end of the year. Oh, yeah. So I had to remember how old I was. Yeah, Sand Yetis. Why not? Why the hell not? Right. And I think sometimes when you don't have room to maneuver, like for example, for those who watch Sly Flourish, and I've played by this plenty of times as well. Um, you you don't need, like, let's say you make up 5 to 10 NPCs. You don't have to nail them down into specific locations, the information they know, their relationships. Just make up 5 NPCs. Very random, and as very little information as you need to play them. Then separately, you have information, and you have that separate. And then you have locations, you make that separate. And then on the fly, you already know your NPCs, you already know the information, you already have your locations. You can mix and match NPCs wherever you want. So instead of saying the players must get the secret from the blacksmith and the players never visit the blacksmith, give that information to the randomly chosen halfling or tiefling or something that runs the inn and is serving drinks. You know, was that in your notes that you wrote in concrete? Well, if it wasn't, then they'll never find out the information. But if you need to place it right in front of them, and you need to, the important thing is the human beings at the table. And if their interest in the thing is to go on an adventure and you need someone to be a quest giver, just give that fucking information to the NPC closest to them and be done with it. Hit them over the head with the clue stick. But if we, okay, so Anon says, out of place elements are one of my go-to method for conveying hidden information. Here's another thing that I love about what you said. Why wouldn't there be frosty, mountainous, cold region Yetis in the desert? Because the question is why. I think you remember this from Lost. For those who were around during the heyday of the television show Lost, there were polar bears in the jungle. And for a while, yes, it was a mystery box. It was written like a mystery box. I get how problematic that was. But the questions, the Crave Robert, the questions were why, around the water cooler, because this is back in the day when everybody traveled to work, and the ideas was you would stand around the water cooler talking about it. It was like, why were there polar bears in the jungle? Where'd they come from? How'd they get there? It wasn't that long ago. Okay, don't challenge me. 20 years? Reddit. Lost TV series, 2004, 20 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. 20 years. Yes, 2004. Yes. The first 6 seasons. Lost TV series, 2004. Wikipedia. Yep. 20 years. Damn. I feel old. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm up there. All right. So leaving questions open. This is a scary technique to use. That word, yeah, you should always say, holy crap. Yeah, it's lost. It's been 20 years. You know what 20 years is? That's a generation of people who are alive today in like college age that have zero idea what the hell you're talking about. That's crazy. Yeah. So, oh, my throat. Sorry. So here's a scary thing that works really well. One of those is one of the techniques is to drop information without context in your player's lap. So, you guys, let's go to the desert world and the Yetis. Why are they there? Are they wild? Maybe they were captured. Maybe they are wandering and they are suffering from the dehydration. Is there a way to follow their tracks? Maybe the Yeti actually want to have their lives saved. As dangerous as they are, maybe they're just pushovers. It's not even a battle. It's an encounter. It doesn't even have to be combat. Why are they doing that? When the players arrive in the city state and everyone is wearing a blue scarf, don't answer that question unless the players engage in it. Give information to the players about your world without a context to it. Now, you may know the context, but don't answer it. So This means that the players may or may not be forced to engage in the information presented to them. Will NPCs come up to the players and offer them a free blue scarf to wrap around their head? They don't know why or what the purpose is unless they ask some NPCs. And the NPC reaction might be like the rest of us, where I have gaps in my geekdom. You don't know why we're wearing blue scarves? Huh. I'm not going to tell you. If you don't know, you should know. You ever get that from a boss? I hate that from bosses, right? You ask a boss a question and they look at you and they answer with an attitude. Well, you're the professional. You should know. And it's like, I asked the question. Oh, I don't know. Let's see. Because I don't know. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the Yetis, a zoo escapee, polymorph accident, ad campaign going wrong. Yeah, ad campaign going wrong. Come to our come to our oasis and city state. We make our own snow in the desert, right? That would be hilarious. But it would be fun because how interesting would it be that the Yetis give us information about a grand wizards council that produces snow in the desert because they are like um cryo they use cryomancy or something like that. That would be awesome. But that gives information. It makes the players go scratch their head like, why is this here? Or let's say you roll that and you go, I have no idea what this is, but I'm gonna throw it in anyway. And I'm gonna wait for my players to give me the answer as to why that is. That is another seat of the pants thing from the OSR that was embraced and very much like, wait, what? Like, oh yeah, I'm just going to roll on this table and whatever happens on the table, I'm just going to insert it, and later on we'll figure it out. And if your players are very conversational, they talk openly about speculating what's going on. Reward their. It's not lazy to reward players for being involved. Actually, the more brain power they use to figure out what your plot is, even if you don't know it, the greater you should reward them because they are just as involved in the game. And I think rewarding that is cool. Yeah. So, what do you do about players that want to know every detail about the realm or world? Yeah, there are those that want to know every NPC's background. They want to know everything. Or actually, sometimes it depends. Yeah, and like Shadow says, there's also the I've heard that quote. Well, my player lives there, so I should know. Now, here's there's a good and bad part of this, and it can be a little bit difficult to analyze this. Um, yeah, I see what you say. The player, you mean the character or the player character? Yeah, lives there. Like, no, you don't really live in. You don't have rent in Greyhawk. Your character does. It was like, oh, that's right. Yeah, and I says, think I'll expand this into a what the hell this thing doing here table. Yeah, it could be. That'd be fun. Like, why is this thing here? It was because of a curse. It was a random wandering thing. It was a you know, half the damn explanations in fantasy were like wizards did it. But it would be funny to make a table like that. I will explain this dragon table in a minute. So sometimes players want to know everything because they truly are interested in your world. And there's no greater thank you for players that are really interested in your world. Then there's some players that, let's be honest, they're assholes. And they don't really want to know everything. They want to know that you know everything. And they're challenging you, not the game. They're challenging you as the game master to question you whether your preparation is one they accept. Now, sometimes the example is given where they're like, well, if the game master is making it up on the fly, I feel like I'm not immersed in the game. And I feel that's really strange because whether the game master makes it up in 30 seconds or 30 minutes or 30 days, they still made it up, right? It's yes, maybe it's a little too close to watching how the sausage is made. Maybe you don't want to see the ground up meat byproduct, extruded out and stuffed into thin membranes. But we know how sausage is made, right? So if a game master says, well, hold on for a minute and starts rolling on some tables and answers your question, maybe you're the asshole that's like, you weren't prepared. Well, maybe you should run the game next time, right? That's my feel. Like if you really want to challenge somebody, maybe you should run the game next time. So we have this. I have this thing here called Dragon World. Made it up in 5 minutes. Really don't care whatever. Didn't do any play testing on it. Nothing. What I love about random tables is that there's a version of a random table called I call a compound table. So instead of just going from 1 to 20, 1 to 5, well, usually even numbers, 1D100 tables and just having a bunch of things, I like compound tables. And compound tables don't just go up and down, they go side to side. And using the compound table multiplies the elements of the table to the point where you have a vast mathematical formula for coming up with very many new aspects in your world. So I have here, I call this Dragon World, and I just made this a D6 table and it goes up and down. So I just started with some descriptors. So I put like arrogant, joyful, fearful, rebellious, honorable, deceitful. Just put those down. So these are descriptors probably of one person or many people. I could assign that. Next to that, I decided to pull some citizenry. So I put down citizens like common folk, knights, worshippers, merchants, guardians, and arcanists or arcanists. So I could roll a d6. It only gives me 6 options. But if I combine that with another d6 table right next to it, they each multiply. I don't believe the true option is 6 times 6. I think it's less than it. But anyway, if you do 6 times 6 is 36. Then I added a third chamber on here, which you could add as many or as few as you want. Double and triple layered, triple section tables to me are my greatest. Because with a single eye look, I can look on this, and if I don't want to roll, because listen, hey, do we really roll on all our random tables? Probably not. What we do is we look on the random table and pick and choose what we want. And my eye can easily slide across here and go, okay, I want a fearful citizens speaking draconic languages. And my third chart here with just 6 options, I put worm emblazoned cloaks, covered in dragon tattoos, riding wyverns, speaking draconic languages, serpent slaying weapons, and injuries from drakes. And are there any true descriptions of these? No. Like riding wyverns, is that like, are they in command of them? Are they like caretakers, farmers of them? What is a serpent slaying weapon? Are they like siege-sized weapons that are able to take down dragons, or are these smaller weapons that can go after like small snakes or something? I don't know. What are injuries from drakes? Is that like acid against the skin or teeth marks? I don't know. Or are these injuries? Did they happen within a couple of hours and they are bleeding to death, or did this happen over months and years where there are people who just have these injuries from constantly fighting these dragons or something? And what does Dragon World even mean? I don't know. But in 5 minutes, you can easily create one of these tables and use it so that I don't know what the NPC is. They turn the corner and they go, well, who's there? I don't know. You find rebellious merchants covered in dragon tattoos. And even I don't know what that means. So are the dragon tattoos, are they worshippers and loyal to the dragons? And the rebellious merchants are selling things in league with the dragons? Do the merchants, can they survive traveling through distant regions, and they are not attacked on the roads by dragon warriors and the dragons because they have these tattoos covering them as an honor to them? Why are they rebellious merchants? Like what is rebellious about them selling things? Are they selling dragon body parts that they shouldn't be because the dragons are upset? So yeah, anyway, that's it. Yeah. Boop, boop, boop. Shadow says it goes hand in hand with the whole 12-page PC backstory for a level 1 PC. Yeah, that's another player character thing that a lot of players make the mistake of. And that is the most interesting thing that happens to your character should be at the table with everyone else. Don't make a backstory that makes you that could never be lived up to. Otherwise, just write a novel, right? Like, don't. The most interesting thing that happens to the character should be at the table. It shouldn't be in your backstory because everything else will pale in comparison to the thing. You know, how many times have people like, I used to be a master wizard, but I lost my memory. Now I'm playing a first level wizard, and it's like, yeah, I get it, and I've seen that trope done before, but it's like, you dispatched a demon, and yeah, but we're fighting rats, and this is just going to lead you to describing like, well, I used to be powerful. I don't understand. Yeah, yep. Shadow says, just out of curiosity, what's your feeling about Castles and Crusades? Ooh, I'm seriously thinking of switching everything from 5e over to Castles and Crusades. There Okay. I put Castles and Crusades. Okay. OSR games, Castles and Crusades, Beck Me, OSE, damn, Knave, Cairn, Maze Rats. Come on, there's other ones. Lamentations of the Flame Princess. Um, Swords and Wizardry. I put all those kind of in a similar category, and that is, I like them. They I like the fruitful void. Yeah, Drew, I said it. I like the fruitful void that those old games have because it allows us to fill the gaps with whatever the hell we want. It puts a lot of big boulders in the bucket and leaves a lot of space for us to pour pebbles and sand down into that same bucket. Yeah, switch over. Yeah, go ahead. A lot of that stuff is free. I think, if I'm not mistaken, most of those old rules you can get for free. Uh, Shinobi says I ran Maze Rats recently, and it's all 2D12 tables, which I really liked. Now, um, there's nothing wrong with okay, sine wave tables. So, for example, rolling multiple dice on a table means that you're going to have rare things happen on the outer edges of the die rolls. So, using 2D12 as an example, very rarely, percentage wise, will you roll. I could look it up. I'm not going to do it. Mathematically speaking, you're very rarely going to roll 2 and 12, right? Or 3 and 11, or 4 and 10. It's going to fall in the middle. And if you don't mind the middle options when you're rolling 2 dice or more, uh, for those things to come up more commonly, then I have no problem with it. I don't mind a table that doesn't have commonality in it, because I like the odd thing coming up more often than the general thing. Because I think most of us, let's pick ourselves the most common thing we'll ever see in fantasy gaming, and those are goblins and goblinoids. Goblins, orcs, bugbears, hobgoblins. You know what I'm talking about. That is so common, we don't need a table, right? We can just say, there's goblin scouts, there's orc raiders, great. We can pull that shit out of our ass all the time. What we sometimes can surprise us is rolling the thing that may not happen often. So I like tables that are like the uncommon things. So yeah. Yeah, Shadow says I got my copy of Knave yesterday. I picked it up for the tables. Yeah, Knave has great tables. Cairn, first and second edition. Cairn, not Karen. Cairn has great random tables on it. And listen, people are going to remember the Yeti in the desert. Desert nomads, unless the interaction is pretty interesting, are people going to remember that? Not really. I mean, I could pull it out. That's easy. Those things are easy. But the Yeti in the desert, and why that's a thing and the story element that comes from it. Yeah. Um, Shadow says, I would suggest keeping notes about decisions you've made as a DM for when those canon loving players want to throw things back in your face. Yeah, well, you can get in. It doesn't have to be tennis. Yeah, Karen prepping the table. There, Drew. Yeah, I knew you were going to get there. Shinobi says, check out any dive. Any dive. Okay. Oh, do you mean any dice? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I know about any dice. Yeah, 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 yeah. Because you can put in, you can program in. Let's put the output to 2d6 and output 2d6, 2d6. Calculate. There we go. There it is. Um, any dice. Yeah, 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 yeah. Goblinoids, goblins, which are especially annoying. Yeah, exactly. Uh, yeah, Shadows is meanwhile, Watsy is claiming the new edition is still 5e. We all know it's really 6e. Here's a, I don't want to, I'm not going to argue the edition, but I will say this. It's already been done before because Watsy has already done it. Uh, if you buy a 2014 book and a 2024 release book, they're not the same. They've changed. They have changed their own game by releasing like Tasha's book and Xanathar's book. So it's already changed. And guess what? Dungeons and Dragons has already changed itself. The OSR understands and has embraced changes. So is Castles and Crusades and Lamentations of Flame Princess and Knave and Swords and Wizardry, are they the same? No. But those of us grognards that love the OSR, we know that. We understand that. We just accept it as a fact. I think um, current players have never seen their game written in a different way, in a different manner, and the fear of being left behind by an edition change is a real fear that players have. And those of us that have survived through the edition wars already understand we're so used to picking and choosing what we want, like you're saying, Shadow, like, oh, I picked this up for the tables. Did you really pick it up for the rule set? Maybe not, but did you pick it up for the tables and accept it for what it is? Yep. Yeah, Shadow says, yep, Tasha and Xanathars were effectively 5.5e. Now, what happens if the player that picked up 3 books, got them for Christmas, and never purchased the 3 base books? What happens to them? Nothing. They play the game that they play. They don't need to pick up the other things. Yep, says, remember D&D Next? That was the name of 5e before we called it 5e. Yep, 3.5 was still 3rd edition, or the Essentials books still have been part of the 4th edition. Yep, we've already been through this. So we already know, we have examples on how to handle it, is what I'm saying. Okay, uh, I've been to the desert with a Yeti in the game. It felt good to be out of the rain. I can't do the song. Gonna take some time to save the Yetis in the desert. Ooh, do 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 do. I don't. You don't do it, because I will. But what I'm sharing with you is the percentage on any dice. It's the percentage chances of rolling like a 2 and a 12. For those who don't know, Any Dice is a website that you can plug in the dice percentages and it'll spit out the output. So let's see, rolling a 4 or a 10 is an 8.33% chance of that happening. And rolling 5, 6, 7, and 8, you could combine those together. Rolling a 7 is a 16.67% chance of rolling a 7, which seems like it would be higher, but I think it's because of, you would think it would be higher, but it actually, that sounds about right. Sometimes we don't even understand our own percentages. Just came in time to hear the sultry. I don't know if the word sultry is it should be used to describe that, but I'll take it. Yeah, I'll put that on my OF page. So here's another chart that I started making up and stopped before the show went live. Political world, right? I don't. You have a world where it's nothing but politics and people talking in rooms, and you need to describe political characters in this world, and your brain is taxed making up wild ass NPCs. So what do? I made this a D6 table. We got sycophants, lobbyists, attaché, envoys, mercenaries, spies, and then what's the other thing? I've got harsh. This is what I would put as to why they are there. Maybe enforcing. I'll put enforcing harsh laws, extreme freedom, measured changes, motivated by coin, drawn to power, building a legacy, right? So, you could have lobbyists or an attaché motivated by coin or enforcing harsh laws. And then I put like a limitation table. And I at the top of this political world chart, I could put the reasons why, which actually makes more sense. I just didn't happen to do that. But anyway, I put in debt or honor bound or bribed, blackmailed, extremely honest. Like extremely honest politician, that's rare, right? But maybe they are telling the truth. And what I love about things that don't fit is, first of all, the players may completely ignore the completely honest politician because they're all liars, right? And we know truthfully, they're all liars, right? But it would be pretty interesting for the players to go back to that NPC and go, wow, you were actually telling the truth. And the NPC is like, yeah, because that's what I do. I doubt the algorithm could identify anything for a copyright strike there. I try. Yeah, gotta love the marketing people. Watsy claimed D&D Next was the only edition of D&D. Sounds familiar, right? Yeah, well, yes, because the marketing, we all know when it comes to corporations and marketing, that no one you don't want to remind people of the old or the future or the past. You want to remind them of today. So yeah, duty bound is number 5. Okay, all right. So yeah, duty bound. There you go. Right. And listen, we could make these tables in like 5 minutes altogether. And do I know, was I prepared for having mercenaries who want extreme freedom and they are extremely honest, which is a weird thing to have? Did I know that was going to happen? No. But if I rolled it on the table, I'll sit back and give myself about 30 seconds and go, okay, this is what they're like. Are there spies that are drawn to power and they are duty bound to a religion, a political leader, a nobility, a merchants group, a guild? Sure, why not? Hell, I just made up another table. We could put down like, who are the political movers and shakers? Nobles, guilds, merchants, citizens, 5 and 6, military, religion. There we go. We got 6. Pull that out of my ass, right? And you can come up with so many different things, and it's just off of having like 6 options. Shit, you can even do it off of 4 options and make options like that. Now, I will say that another way to drop knowledge, info dump. I'll give you my info dump so we can get the hell up out of here. Have things in the world happen without explaining why they're there. So, and you can be as micro detailed as you'd like, but only, I suggest, don't do more than 1 to 3. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to go back to the blue scarf. Food is a great option. Fashion is a great option to do this with. Language, and I don't mean like foreign languages. I mean the way people greet each other, how they talk with each other. Those are things that, and if you're really good at this, architecture, um, the random in the middle of a conversation that people are having in your world are great ways to drop lore without being specific. And what I mean by that is um, you can, the types of foods people eat in a place, you don't have to explain why they're eating it. They just are. Now, it may make the players step back a little bit, like, oh, they're eating, like in my sci-fi setting, insects are the new other white meat, right? There's no steaks, there's no chicken, there's no fish. It's well, they're not. There's no, but insects are a choice meal. And while I don't necessarily have to explain it, it's different. So when everyone stops in the city square, when the bell rings, and everyone stops, closes their eyes, looks to the sky, and holds their hands up, and they stop for 30 seconds, and then at the end of that, they all kind of like smile and go about their business. The players are like, why did they do that? I don't know. And that to me is like dropping little nuggets of information while at the same time revealing something about the world that they can piece together. Oh, this is a dragon world. They adorn themselves in cloaks with that are have these intricate patterns of dragons on them. There is a temple, and in front of the temple, people bring their coin and they drop it in the middle of the circular temple like a dragon's hoard, and they lay over top of the dragon's hoard a giant tapestry that is of an it's like 30 by 30, and it's a big giant tapestry, and they lay it over as if the dragon is laying on top of the hoard, and the PCs are like, hmm, are they hoping the dragon comes? Are they going to give this treasure to a dragon, or is the dragon dead? It like, what is the point of this? And who knows? Also, please, please, please learn this skill, and that is reflavor, repurpose, reskin. There is no reason why we have to call orcs orcs. There's no reason we have to call magic or science fiction and all these kind of things by the names that are in the book. When your citizens call things the way they refer to it. Oh, those are the dragon people that live in a swamp. Now, are you using lizard folk? Sure. But the people don't know that. They go, oh, we have a good relationship with the dragon folks, and the player characters may be talking at the table. Are they dragonborn or draconian? What is this about? You don't have to answer that. If basilisks show up, I'm trying to think of other things that aren't dragons. Basilisks, serpents, drakes, worms, wyverns. I know there's more. Giant lizards, giant snakes, all those things. And if the people call them all dragons, that's what they call them. That's what they know them by. So what? You don't have to. The people don't have to call the giant scorpion riders. Oh, those are orc raiders riding giant scorpions. Yanti, yep, or Yuan-Ti. I like to blur it together. Yanti. But anyway, yes, there's another group of snake-like scaled people, and guess what? You can pick yetis and owlbears and fire giants and cockatrices and rust monsters, and guess what? You can make them dragons too. Just reflavor them, reskin them. They don't need you don't a fire giant in fantasy doesn't need to be a giant on fire. It could be a kaiju styled monstrosity with scales on it, and all you're doing is just using the stat block. Just erase the name and call it whatever the hell you want. Your aunt your auntie, yeah. Oh, for some reason that sounds so sweet with such a dangerous creature, right? What is the other one that's hard to pronounce? Sahuagin, the lamprey fish people, the Sahuagin. There's another one. Yeah, reskinning is a big thing for Sly Flourish. It works great. Yeah, reskin the shit out of stuff. And guess what? Your reskin also gives you permission to change the stats too. You can make something that's normally very intelligent very dumb. Um, you could make an Efreet a very dumb fire elemental that just has great power. Matter of fact, you could even erase all the intelligence of, say, an Efreet. Erase the intelligence, make it a blazing pillar of fire, and cultists are around it, wishing from it to bless them with great power. And the pillar of fire is doing all the things that an Efreet would do. Doesn't talk, it's not intelligent, they're reading a ritual, it doesn't, right? You can do that. The Yeti doesn't have to have like resistance or immune to cold. You just make it resistance to heat because it's in the desert. Those lizard folk, if you want to give them swimming, sure, they have swimming. Or burrowing, whatever, just give it to them. Do you want to make those burrowing lizard folk, they can swim through sand, but you also make them blind because the sunlight has like burned away their retinas, and they actually go by tremor sense because they can sense movement on the surface. Look, I literally just made up a new monster, and I wasn't even trying to do that. So you start changing their movement rate. You change how they look. You change how they behave. You change their intelligence and social ability. Are they more animalistic? Are they very intelligent? You give them limitations. You change their senses and the way they interact with the world, and you're done. Owlbear. Use an owlbear template and just change the shit out of it, right? It is hot. You should fix your AC. Yeah, it's hot. Yeah. Darn, seconds too late. You're all right there, Z. Yeah. Hey, thank you very much for stopping by. So, well, if everyone you encounter is a giant, you might be a dwarf. That's hilarious. You know what? That's a good way of I did that when I had an adventure that started out with the players drinking a potion of shrinking. And the entire adventure was them navigating through drainage tunnels and escaping. And I used all the giant-sized monsters to represent them being small. So they were attacked by super giant rats, giant cats, Titan-like human people walking around who couldn't see them, walking around their ankles. It was a bunch of stuff. They were attacked by giant swarms of insects. I think at one point they actually got on the back of some of the insects and started riding. It was very fun. It was a bit comedic, but it was very fun of them like climbing up chairs and tables and dodging around bowls and plates and soup and stuff like that. A player jumped into a turkey that was on the table because it was just very fun to jump into the back of the baked turkey on the table and use it like a cave or something. It was hilarious. But yeah, we did that. We didn't even change. The players' stats didn't even change. I think they were like third level or something. But it was fun. Yeah, throws off your Spectrum players that memorize the monster manual. Spectrum players. Some of us, no, most of us are on the Spectrum, and yes, that's a thing. Z says, "Oh, I reskin everything often. Goblins are maggots in my game. Yep, which then pay into hobgoblins. I love that. Slow clap. Yep. And then into actual flying bugbears. Yep, give them wings. That's all you need to do. Throw wings on a thing. Give it tunneling. Give it flying. Give it swimming. Yep. Shadow says, yeah, reskinning. And guess what? Before we get out of here, shh, don't tell anybody. Reskinning is free. You don't need permission either. You're not producing an object. You're doing this for the fun. So flex that muscle. So guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I'm taking too much of your time, but so thank you very much for being here. And also, by the way, guys, have a great day. Thank you very much for being part of the show. We'll talk about something tomorrow. There's something in here that I'm not remembering, but it came up that you guys brought up, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. So guys, have a great one. I will see you later. Peace and tranquility. Thank you very much for spending your valuable time here. I didn't say that part. I hope I can give you change for your tabletop role-playing experience. Peace. I'm out.